the three blowhards: Paul Mulshine, formerly of the Star Ledger; Paul Bangiola, formerly the state, the county, Morris County Democratic chairman. In other words, totally powerless. And Mike Carroll, former assemblyman from a Republican assemblyman from Morris County, also in a position that's totally powerless. But at least he had fun.
I speak
So
for yourself. No fun involved at all.
yeah, I'm thinking, one thing about all this publicity that was out there today, and this is a minor, a trivial crank point, but does everything have to be iconic? I mean, we're talking about the iconic this and the iconic that, and the iconic TV show that, I wonder if it's just become a cliche that is impossible to escape. So
Maybe we should kick the can down the road on answering that question.
it would be, well, no, well, I don't know. You don't have any
Every
thoughts
debt
on.
every debt ceiling issue results in 1,000 pundits saying they're going to kick the can down the road. This looks like we're going to kick the can down the road again. So I guess iconic falls in that category. I agree with you. It's a
Well,
really
yeah, just today, uh, there was Leonard Skinner, which has no living members, is going to give an iconic concert. It's just a uh,
a tribute band.
no, they replaced them one by one as they died. So, and the one they put in there, probably was a better musician because the first guys were just like the guys that happened to meet in the garage. But yeah, this referred to them as an iconic Southern. And what does it mean? I mean, iconic means like an icon, which is like big in the Russian Orthodox Church, which has nothing to do with rock and roll. It's just a bad metaphor. So anyhow, that's my little cranky outburst. But anybody wants to say anything about it?
You're the New Jersey William Sapphire.
Hmm. Yeah, he wrote about that kind of stuff a lot.
Gonna say the New Jersey H.L. Mencken because you're very cranky and moody. So let's get on to the next issue.
Okay. What's the next issue for you? You pick it.
I don't have one. I rely upon the moderator, and that would be you.
Oh, how about you, Paul?
Well, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that it's been a terrible weekend for our country and for the world with the shootings in Australia, the death of American soldiers in Syria, a shooting on campus at Brown University, and then uh, a terrible, a terrible murder in Los Angeles of Rob Reiner and his wife, apparently by their son, and then all of which would cause us to look for the leadership of our president. And what we got instead has just been beneath contempt and just ghastly. And uh, that the president, in a moment like this, put on display the most repugnant narcissism that he just has to divert attention from where attention should be placed. And whether for good or ill, he has to divert attention to himself.
Well, what are you going to do? Ban knives? I mean,
No, 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 no. You're supposed, as the president, you're supposed to focus on the events that happened in Australia, Syria, at Brown University, even Rob Reiner's death, not divert attention to yourself and your own grievances and put your own incredible narcissistic dysfunction on display to
incredible
the
narcissistic. That sounds like you're talking about Mike.
no, Mike's just just a curmudgeonly Morris
I,
County Republican.
I'm way too ugly to be a narcissist. But I want to come back to Paul what you said there because I mean you and I may find some agreement on that, and that It seems to be, and at the risk of a little bit of whataboutism, the tone deafness of society lately. You had Schumer going on talking about Australia today and said, "But first, let me talk about the Buffalo Bills winning." Where do you come off with this? Who trains these people? I mean, it's just ridiculous that you have
Wait a
this
minute,
sort
he
of
actually did that?
did
Can
it.
I can
It's
I
it was not Babylon Bee stuff.
can I take a 15-second spot and compose a statement for President X under these circumstances?
Go
Because
ahead.
as President of the United States, I wish to extend my condolences to the loved ones of those who were shamelessly murdered on the beach in Australia, an act of horrible anti-Semitism and representation of terrorism in our world that still represents such a threat to all decent people. And we know how much those families are suffering. To Rob Reiner's family, someone with whom I disagreed vehemently and who certainly was no fan of mine, but who contributed a lot to our country and our culture. I extend my condolences to that family. Of course, to our lost servicemen in Syria.
You got 15 seconds and you just went over.
Well, not too much. I'm trying to cover four events, and finally, to the families of the Brown University students who've been killed and wounded, I can assure them of our untiring efforts to apprehend their killers. We will not rest until justice is served. Thank you. How's that?
I should like to note that that Paul, on the one, it's not entirely clear the motivations of the shooter up at Brown yet. They've got some new video out of him, sort of a portly gentleman apparently wearing a mask and such like that, who shouted something unintelligible as he walked into a room. But there was some interesting speculation online, the fact that the professor of the course that he shot up was a professor of Judaic studies.
Oh no, is that
And
right?
and so, so
Oh, that's
there's
terrible.
well, if that's the case, then you leave the Reiners out of it for the minute because that was a family issue. But
Well,
that would mean that in Syria and in Australia and in Brown, there was one common theme of Islamism.
ISIS, ISIS.
Well, something like that,
Yeah.
Islamicism, and it's about time that people united against that. And I think Mr. Molshine and I might agree that the one question I had when I heard that people were killed in Syria is, what the hell do we have troops in Syria for? You
Well,
know, they,
I actually had that same exact reaction. I wasn't aware that we had American soldiers in harm's way in Syria. I didn't know that, and
well,
I was surprised to find that out. Now, the fact
I
that
knew that because there was a big, you probably are aware of the big firefight they had a number of years ago against the Wagner Brigade, the Russians, where the American troops cleaned up a lot of Russian, shall we say, not exactly official soldiers. So I knew they were there at that
yeah.
time, and I knew they were defending some oil infrastructure. So, but again, from my perspective, I think, I don't know whether we've had this discussion before. From about like say the tip of Africa, maybe over into Southern Asia. Uh, is there really any reason for us to be there at all? Have any troops? I had two sons of mine that were deployed to, of all places, Djibouti. Why? Bring our kids home. There's no excuse for us. I understand the basics of wanting to have, so check Chinese power, but from my perspective, let them have Africa. What do we let it's a fat lot of good it did the Europeans when they had it. So let's get our people home.
Yeah, I would say Trump should just pick one country to beat up on, and the one that has a lot of oil and a lot of gold is Venezuela. But he screwed that up. He just like instead of setting up some sort of fake, reason for war, he just started creating reasons to think he's fucking, crazy because just blowing up a bit boats and so forth just
Well,
is.
when he's being denounced by James Woods, the actor James Woods, and Laura Ingraham, and it's an indication that he's gone far afield, even for his most staunch supporters. And as far as finding a pretext to invade Venezuela, um, the cat's out of the bag. I guess it wouldn't be a pretext anymore. He's also trying to sanction the members of the World Court to ensure that they alter the charter of the World Court so that he could never be charged personally with war crimes when he leaves office. So the fact
Well,
that
as a lawyer, you must say that's a pretty nice move.
A pretty nice move. I think that the court of last resort in the world is the World Criminal Court, and the fact that our president would even consider bringing that subject to the attention of the public, again, it just shows how self-centered and narcissistic he is. It's just terrible. We need a serious person in the White House who can focus on
Yeah, well, it's a little
any
late
one of
for
these
that.
problems.
Then why did you nominate Kamala?
It's
Well, our candidate got too old, Paul.
well, he wasn't very serious either, and that's the
No, he
whole
was.
that's the
He
problem.
was he was a serious man. And
We
this candidate, this president is clearly beyond his capacity at this point. And
when go ahead, yeah, but at the risk of again,
we're talking about finishing ballrooms, and he's partying with Kash Patel when he should be looking, when the FBI director should be looking for the guy who's on the loose in Providence, Rhode Island.
I hadn't realized that was the FBI director's job, but I thought that's why they paid the agents on the ground to do that. But I
It's an
mean,
investigative
the fact is,
agency.
one of the things, a lot of people on your side of the aisle, maybe not necessarily on your ideology, like to point to all other civilized nations in the world and such like that. The one aspect of our Constitution that's always struck me as interesting is the fact that the president doesn't have to have any qualifications at all. In virtually every other system in the world, he's the PM or whatever is, the guy who has the real power has come up through the ranks and demonstrated that he or she is a very capable, calm, well, usually calm, but capable politician of making deals. That doesn't exist here, and I think
The
it's
Chief Justice of the Supreme Court need not be a lawyer.
well, that's true, but then again, and when he was Earl Warren, he wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was. You look around and you find that uh, I did a con law course this morning for CLE, which is fascinating. But what gets me about it is the fact that we have in whether it was a tradition of electing generals or governors of big states. Governors of big states is not such a bad idea. But I look at the proven qualities of politicians around the world, and I sometimes pine for a better system here.
Well, we both parties produced better candidates, say before 1970. From the earlier part of the 20th century, there were better candidates produced by both parties routinely because the conventions were powerful and the parties were powerful, and they were raucous, open meetings of very disparate elements within both parties, and they came up with candidates that they thought could win, and they took hard-eyed assessments of the candidates. It's a it we
It's
have
it's funny to me, Paul. Let me interrupt you. It's funny to me that you drew the line at 1970.
Well, there was a George McGovern was nominated in 1972, yeah, and and Robert F. Kennedy had been assassinated in 68. The convention of 72 was kind of a watermark, for really for both political parties, in my
I
opinion.
assume you threw that word "water" in there as a pun deliberately.
What? Oh, I think you just went mute.
Oh,
Oh, I
well,
said Watermark, Watergate. You're talking
Oh,
about all this.
Watergate. Well, the parties were never the same, and then 1980, I think most political scientists would say was a realigning election. After that, there had been 25 or 30 years when the Democrats had absolute control over both houses of Congress, and when Johnson was in, they had the both houses and the presidency, and then the Senate was lost in 80 when Reagan came in. And then when Gingrich came in briefly, they had all three, as I recall.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Unless you consider William Jefferson Clinton to be a Republican.
No, no. I mean, wasn't they didn't get the House until Clinton was president. That's right. So
Correct.
they didn't have
Correct.
that.
So, and in fact, it's a kind of it's my
It
I don't
took
know.
it took Trump to get all three.
See, now you grew
it
up
did.
in
That's why the Republicans don't really. It's the Democrats that have a problem here. I'm sure Mike will agree with this. They just build up favors inside the party, which they're used to getting, putting various hacks in various positions and deals to support them in the future. And they just nominate lousy candidates.
Well, you're catching up fast. There's been an incredible amount of catching up that's gone on since last January as far as kleptocracy and bribery and corruption in a scale that no one's ever dreamed of. And that everything that was ever slung at the Democrats is on full display from the Republican Party now. And it doesn't show any sign of abating. We have nepotism, we have insider deals. We have,
Nepotism. Nepotism this time.
I'm sorry, what?
Where's the nepotism right now? I'm curious about
Oh,
that.
well, okay. Jared Kushner took $2 billion from the Saudi royal family immediately upon his father leaving office to start a hedge fund. Then he, together with the son of our current trade negotiator, assembled a conglomerate designed to create a sure mechanism for Bitcoin in which the Trump family is vested, thereby making it possible for anonymous contributors to directly put money into the family of the Trumps.
Well, nepotism is by definition benefiting your family at
Sort of,
government expense.
sort of
And I was
like
going to say Burisma here. This
yeah,
That's Penny Ante stuff, and nobody ever proved it was Joe Biden, just his ne'er-do-well
so if it was
son.
Joe Biden, what do you think? Are
But
Democrats going
what's
to
the
throw?
proof of what's the? I mean,
didn't
we're going to
did,
do whataboutism over $500,000. We're talking about billions of dollars in crypto.
Oh, what about
uh,
the millions that went to University of Pennsylvania to pay,
Millions
to
again.
pay Joe?
Yeah, yeah, but that's
but
what you got. There's billions at stake in undermining the United States currency and establishing an alternative currency, the Bitcoin market that the Trump family, together with the chief U.S. trade negotiator, are intimately involved. And they're directly profiting every time they go into the sure coin market.
you
This
buy
is
gold, Paul?
Well,
no, I don't. No, I don't buy gold. I want the U.S. dollar to be the reserve currency, like it's been since World War II. And
Well,
the country with the reserve currency has the most to lose when there's an alternative to that currency. Who wants an alternative to that currency? Chinese, the Russians, drug dealers, arms smugglers. That's the ones who want an anonymous currency that won't work, that won't be traceable through normal channels, and especially won't bolster the U.S. dollar.
well, I'm going to stop you there for a minute because an anonymous currency. I don't own any Bitcoin. I don't have any fires in that iron or any dogs in that fight.
Yeah.
But anonymous currency is a good thing. It's in that when the government knows less about you, the better off we all are. And that's why and for example, right now, you use a credit card at a store, they have to get a charge against you. The government can track that. And I'll tell you, just by way of a sort of a roundabout example, a number of years ago when we lost a prominent New Jersey Republican who was killed, who was kidnapped and killed, they managed to track him down by using his Easy Pass. And now with our phones and our Easy Pass, the fact that I mean, right now the Democrats have taken a very dim view at things like Palantir because they say that when the government knows all these things, that's a bad thing. They're right, and so I'm not particularly a fan of Bitcoin. I think personally, I don't understand. I guess all money is kind of invented when you think about it. But the simple fact of the matter is that the less government knows about us, the happier I think most of the people should actually be.
And
Well,
that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's a big thing with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's been warning about um, real actual hard currency disappearing, which is the wish of a lot of. I was over in Europe recently. I didn't even change. I was in Ireland, and before that in the UK. Nobody even asked me for anything other than a credit card. I mean, I
well,
did buy some pounds, but I didn't get any euros. No
I would, I
coins.
would, I would commend to both of you a book that was written in 2025 called "If Anybody Builds It, Everybody Dies." And one of the problems we have is that the
You
artificial
slugged that book the last time we were on. Are you on the payroll? I mean,
No, no, it's a very disturbing, important book that everyone needs to read because it's about everyone's assumption that artificial intelligence is a completely manageable technology. And in fact, yes, there's one thing about Bitcoin that I like. It's a store of value so that in a developing nation with a terrible government, where the currency is completely unreliable and the government changes all the time, and you never know if you own anything, you can store your wealth through a blockchain currency. It's a good thing in that sense, but it has to be traceable. It has to be traceable. If it's not traceable, you can use it for anything nefarious, which is what drug dealers and arms smugglers and sex traffickers and everyone else in the world who wants to do something terrible wants to do.
How do you trace cash? I mean, unless you're putting it in the bank, it's not traceable. You can just pass it all throughout your hands.
I'm sorry,
And
how do
so
you?
trace cash. I mean,
Oh,
if somebody
cash. Oh,
somebody gives
it's
you a million,
cash. Oh, cash. Cash
yes,
has its cash
not
has its
K-A-S-H,
cash has
C-A-S-H.
its limitations.
Yes.
It's bulky and you can only carry so many bags of it. That's the problem with cash. There's a
I'll take the
reason.
risk.
Well, okay, but there's a that's why, you see those movies where the bank robbers driving away and the dollar bills are blowing out the open windows. That's not a bad thing if you have to catch a bank robber. And I don't object to anonymous cash transactions. There's a scale to it. One of the things that happened, one of the people that Donald Trump pardoned was a guy who set up a Bitcoin online international drug market. And he found a way to sell virtually anything your little heart and dark soul could
That was in the
imagine.
Silk Road, right?
Yeah, and that person was, I think he was serving decades in prison when he was pardoned. I have no idea what possessed the president or anybody around him to recommend this pardon, but it's one of literally thousands of corrupt pardons that have happened since Trump took office, and
I
including
wouldn't call that a corrupt part. It sounds like he got his money's worth.
oh God.
Paul, I want to come back to that. Paul,
Yeah,
Bianchi, I want to come back to that because you see, the reserve currency of the world is a great thing. But the one problem you have with that, and we saw it in the last administration, was what happens if the United States government decides to inflate the value of the currency away by huge amounts of borrowing, spending, and then monetizing the debt. I read in today's Wall Street Journal, yesterday's Wall Street Journal, that the Fed's doing it again. And if you monetize debt, which is to say you throw a lot of dollars out there into the economy,
yeah.
that's the classic definition of inflation. And
The greatest debt inflator in history was Donald Trump in his first administration. And Republicans have been the debt inflators since 1980, not Democrats.
actually,
The
actually, that's not
Democrats,
true.
the Democrats have
Biden vastly outdid him.
the Democrats have delivered balanced budgets and had the deficit almost ready to be reduced in
When?
2000 when George Bush took office, and then we got the Iraq War, and we got the first prescription drug plan. So
There
there's
you
been
go.
unbridled spending, starting with Reagan, that the Republicans just don't acknowledge. And
No, actually, let's cut that out because the fact of the matter is Reagan substantially cut back on a lot of spending, but he had a lot of military spending,
but military
and
spending counts. It's
I
spending.
understand that. But the fact of the matter is that the story was that Ronald Reagan was supposed to get what was it $3 of spending cuts for every dollar worth of tax increases. They got the tax increases and not spending cuts.
Well,
I mean, and I'll ask you a simple
this
question,
is
Paul.
this is
Let me
algebra.
stop you.
This
Let me
is
stop you.
algebra. It's algebra, right?
I want to ask you a
Pluses
simple
and
question.
minuses. Everything
Well,
has to be paid for. Like
does it?
yeah, a tax cut has to be paid for.
No, it doesn't.
It's a tax cut. The Laffer curve that Republicans have been trumpeting since 1980 has yet to work. It never works. It just leaves the deficit.
No,
And
it
it
always
carries
works. I mean, the Laffer curve is a truism. I mean, the fact is that there are two places on the Laffer curve is nothing more than a simple saying that at 0% and at 100% you get no revenue, and that's a truism. And then the question is, where is the sweet spot in the line? Now we may have a disagreement about that, and
well, this
but
part
I
is
want to come,
fair.
but I
This
want to
part
come,
is fair.
but I
Okay.
want to come back to Clinton because I think that I agree with
Let's
many of the
talk about the
policies.
sweet spot.
Let's talk about the sweet spot. How about what Bill Bradley gave us in 1986? That was the best tax bill of my lifetime. And he came in with a tax plan which had three levels, and the top level was 28%. That
I
was a
remember,
Democrat.
I just want to say, I remember the tax bill. And do you remember what famous real estate tycoon denounced it?
Of
Oh
Donald,
course,
no, I know
Donald
that
Trump,
I know
Donald
that.
Trump,
Well,
Donald Trump.
let's go back to that because Joe Biden voted for it, which means that Biden was right and Trump was wrong about cutting taxes. I'm in favor of that. I'm also in favor of the
It
spending
was
level.
about, it was a, the Brad, that bill was large. I don't want to get into the minutia of the 1986 Tax Act that Bradley proposed, but it was largely about simplifying taxes and eliminating loopholes. So,
Great.
there's,
What's to complain about?
well, see, the problem is that if you trigger tax cuts, you are spending because it's pluses and minuses. It's algebra. If you cut something that generates revenue, you're spending money.
Well, now that's just not true. I mean, and Bill Clinton proved that too. When he cut the capital gains rate down from what is it, 28% to 20%, there was a huge influx of revenue. Tax cuts produce more revenue at
Yeah.
some levels.
He
And it's plus,
also he also cut welfare benefits for which many people on the liberal side will never forgive him. The lifetime cap on welfare benefits, I think it was 5 years, and there were important spending cuts that went along with that. Actually, money going out the door. What we're not getting from Republicans in terms of intellectual honesty is the fact that there have been huge tax cuts to the wealthy under Trump that were just extended under the big beautiful bill as he calls it, that are completely unfunded. They're not
well,
supported by revenue. And
what
it's
the,
based upon a hope and a prayer that this money is going to come back to us in terms of increased tax revenue.
and it has
It
because
never happens. It never happens.
there has been increased revenue after every single rate cut in the federal government for the last 40 years. What hasn't happened is the spending cuts. Now, if you want to blame George W. Bush, for example, for increasing Medicare Part D without paying for it, bingo. The fact of the matter is what the reason we suffer so much today is because the senator of your party from this state, Bob Torricelli, broke his promise, voted against the balanced budget amendment, and completely betrayed not only his constituents but the country. If we had a balanced budget amendment today, such that people the people who want to spend money had to impose the taxes, that would be a wonderful thing. Let me give you a concrete example. Right now, the Democrats are talking about how they want to extend the ACA subsidies. How are they going to pay for it? Got an answer for that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, go ahead.
Roll back those reckless tax cuts that we
Okay,
just granted to the people who don't need them because
I repeat,
it doesn't generate what they claim it generates. It
and when
doesn't.
you're elected to Congress, you can make that proposal. I want to see the proposal from the Democrat in Congress to raise the money necessary to pay those subsidies.
Well, you just asked me for a proposal, then you said I shouldn't make a proposal.
No. I said I want you to show me the Democratic proposal, and I haven't seen it.
Oh,
Have you?
I just gave you a Democratic proposal, but okay.
You're not in office. I mean,
Oh,
like I
okay.
said,
All right. That's
I want to see, and you don't have
I'm a
any
little
votes in this.
busy. I'm just in my law practice. Yeah.
Feel
Okay.
free. But I mean, the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is if you're going to support something, and I'll take your honesty, although I don't know which tax cuts you talk about as being reckless. The ones that came to me were certainly not reckless. But I mean, we could, for example, roll back the SALT tax cuts, which the Democrats insisted on putting in the one big beautiful bill. Right now, they're 40% where they were 10. Let's eliminate that entirely. That's a massive tax break for the rich.
Well, it's a tax break for the property tax holders in the states that generate the best students in the United States because those states value education and provide great schools.
Actually, it's because those states could send more of their kids to private school.
Well, you're giving a lot of credit to the fact that the wealthy people send their kids to private schools because a lot of wealthy people, especially in this neck of the woods, send their kids to great public schools. And my kids all went, I'm not wealthy, but all three of my kids went to outstanding public schools. And many other people do the same thing. So that's not happening in Mississippi. They're sending their kids to private Christian academies to avoid sending their kids to integrated schools, and that's
Oh, the race card.
it's
The
kind of left.
Democrats
It's
can't
kind of,
get
well,
through.
do you deny it? I mean,
Well,
Yes, of
you know
course.
which state has the worst segregation of all public educated kids
I don't
in the
know.
country?
Maybe New Jersey.
New Jersey. And
Okay.
there's presently a lawsuit contending that they have to go to some sort of system to allow interdistrict public school choice or merged districts or something like that because they claim that people judged on the basis of the color of their skin have been segregated off into particular areas. I
You and I
think
don't
that
live in one of those. You and I don't live in one of those. We live in one of the most diverse school districts, and my kids went to one of the most diverse school districts with high achieving children of all backgrounds
which is actually an interesting point
in the
because
country. In the
as
country, it
as
can
you
be done. It can be done.
it can be because they forced Morristown and Morris Township to merge, and if they had not done that, very well
Morristown would be, if they had not done that, Morristown would probably have gone the way of, say, Elizabeth or Hackensack, and instead we have a vibrant community. At the time, it was all about race, and that the lawsuit blocked the township from building its own separate high school, which would have become an all-white high school, and white flight would have occurred in the town. And that historic decision saved both communities, and we're left with an incredible school district that's got children of all different backgrounds going to school together. And
they should have built the school and then closed Morristown High.
well, we're in kind of micro conversation for our audience. I hope at least there's some people who are not
True.
from Mars Plains, Mars Township, and Mars.
My dad served on the board of education back then, so I was it was an issue near and dear to our family's heart.
Yes, yeah, my father was one of the parties to that lawsuit. So what's next, Paul?
Well, I'm just observing, listening to all this wisdom going to waste.
We knew you're supposed to be the guy in charge of the audience, so
No, I just if things are going along swimmingly, I just let them swim. But yeah, on that point, every time they judge, these entities that judge the worth of public schools, they always include spending per capita. And New Jersey, one reason New Jersey gets high ratings is they spend a lot of money. Not that it produces results, just that they spend a lot of money. And that to the Democrats, spending a lot of money is a good in itself, which is why this state is broke. You get creating jobs is a good and spending in public jobs is to them just a really, really good thing. And I just disagree with that. I mean, I think you should get maximum results. I went to a Catholic school in Thomas River where the tuition was zero. No, it was $150 a year. And somehow we performed so much better than the public schools in Ocean County, even though that was as white as a Ku Klux Klansman sheet. The Republicans were all very white, but they just had crummy schools. I mean, kids would tell you they're real proud of getting 800 on their SAT, and they didn't realize that was you're supposed to get
oh God,
1600.
oh God.
But they judge. The problem with everything Democrats propose is their value basis. Their value system's wrong. It's creating jobs is a value. Creating private jobs is a value because they provide the income to run everything else. But providing public jobs is it takes money away from educating where it could go. And that's why we should have, and by the way, they're never going to solve this thing. They bring up this, we just name one district that's going to merge with another district if this suit ever goes through.
Well, they won't. Again, it's the remedy. The judge already. I think I may be incorrect about this, Paul. You can correct me, but I think the judge already ruled that there was a segregation, but there's no clear ability to make remedy because I mean, what do you do about it? I mean, it's. I think that the only school system in the entire
Which
state
school districts are we talking about?
Essex County that way. And one of the plaintiffs in it was a man who had tried to enroll his kid in the Maplewood School District, despite the fact he didn't live there, and
Oh,
is trying to contend that he should be allowed to enroll his kid in the Maplewood School District because of imbalance of people based upon their skin colors. But again, at the end of the day, we could solve this problem in an afternoon. Universal school choice and the tyranny of the zip code goes away. And Molshine, I don't know if you've done it. You've ever looked at the New Jersey Seeds program, which has an impeccable Democratic leftist board. I think Blair McGinnis served on it for a while. And their point is to take very talented kids and get them as far away from the public schools as possible. Uh, they
Well,
understand it.
I'm not a fan of charter schools. I don't believe in them, just as I don't believe in subsidizing religious schools. I think that if we had great parents and talented kids go to the public schools get better because of that. And unfortunately, when they look for an alternative to the public schools, we lose those kinds of parents that pay attention to homework and stay on top of teachers and attend school board meetings and make the schools better for everybody. And sometimes they do it because they're just looking out for their own kid and they're concerned about things that any parent would be concerned about.
Yeah, I'm
Sometimes
about to say that's kind of the job description,
what's kind of the job description?
looking out for your own kid.
Well, yes, that's right. That's right. But we shouldn't encourage the flight from the public schools, is what I'm saying, with charter schools. There's nothing inherently virtuous about a charter school.
Well, there's nothing inherently virtuous about a public school. The whole point is to have education. I mean, if you had to frame
No, no,
the
no,
education,
no, no, no,
if you
no.
had to frame the education,
The public school is designed to create an informed citizenry.
fine.
And,
But then what you
and
just said to me is that education is the goal, and therefore the end of educational policy should to secure the best possible education for the most number of kids at the lowest possible cost to the taxpayers.
yeah, but mixing the informed citizenry in the public school when they're young is a great thing to do. And encouraging
But they try to go to Asbury Park and see how that works. They spend 35,000 per pupil per year, and they're still at the very bottom of real score. I mean, when you look at the scores, they're just at the bottom
Well,
in
actually,
every category.
but the funny thing
well,
about that is right next door to Asbury Park is a former Abbott district, which is now whining because their property, they lost a whole bunch of state aid because they had the temerity to succeed as a community. That's Neptune.
Yeah.
Former, and so now they're being asked to pay more property taxes because they're now rich and they're whining about it. It's which I think is kind of funny.
well, I think we might be better to take a fresh look at some of these policies or that have gone a little long in the tooth and see if we are still doing it in the best, smartest way to do it. I think if you look at this particular district that we started off talking about, the Morris School District, you could hardly find a better example. In fact, it's a nationwide example of a diverse, racially diverse, ethnically diverse, economically diverse district where you have finally cracked the achievement gap and you have minority students achieving along with white students of different economic class at the same, achieving and
Well,
getting.
where in one district, I mean, Asbury Park at closing on 40,000 a year has produced nothing, you know.
Right. It
Name
takes
one that where it's worked.
Morris School District is what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm talking about that. And it includes Morris Township, Morris Plains, and Morristown, includes Morristown High School.
But those are not really, heavily racial. Where the
We have
race is
50,
there?
we have
White, white, and
a
white.
school district where more than 50% of the student body receives breakfast and lunch at school.
Oh, that's the biggest scam. No, where does the
Well, I mean,
race
it's
go
it's just
through?
an indication of the racial mix is approximately just under 50% non-white. Just about.
Define white there, Paul. I'm curious about that.
Okay, well, if you don't, I think our audience will understand what I'm talking about.
Will they? Because the census doesn't define whites the same way you do.
I don't know maybe I said something incorrect. Did I offend you, Mike? You don't
I want to
understand
know
what?
whether or not you count a Hispanic as white.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm
You see, that
counting.
makes you wrong.
Well, okay. Well, I didn't understand what you were driving at. Hispanic and African American, non-African American Hispanic children they're just under 50% combined in this district, and the white population's just over 50%. It's an incredible mix. Now there are uh, African American population, as I recall, is approximately 10%. Hispanic population was around 30%, and other ethnic groups make up the balance of this what we would call a minority population. It could easily become a majority population. But in this mix, to achieve test scores and success, there was an article in the New York Times, I think it was about 2 years ago, recognizing that the Mars School District had actually kind of broken the code and tried to encourage white parents and white students not to flee and encourage uh, minority students to achieve and to make it possible for them to achieve for them and their families. And it's an amazing district. It really is. But it needs to be replicated, and we need to catch our kids young and not lose them through a variety of things. Like one way to look at this is, what percentage of our Hispanic and African American children in these kinds of schools are winding up in AP classes? Uh, because those are the feeder grounds where the students get into elite colleges and deserve to be in elite colleges. And a lot of times you have students who achieve well with their peers until fourth or fifth grade, and then they fall by the wayside. And it's part of the secret sauce to not let that happen. And these educators have to pay attention to all of these things at the same time. So
Yeah, but when you look at this, you're saying now Ocean County, where I live, has a very small minority population, and yet there are plenty of schools that people, good schools, and plenty of mediocre. There aren't that many great schools, but there's a lot of mediocre schools, and it's the only place anybody who's not rich can afford to live anymore is below the Raritan, and there's, but those schools in Ocean County have the money taken from them and sent to Asbury Park, Long Branch, and all these others. All these cities take the money that could go to the people who really are trying to get ahead, and they just waste the money. I mean,
well, you're never going to get an argument from me that public schools should be a racket, and I don't defend that. I'm for great public schools and wise use of taxpayer money. And if we're not getting our return, we should be getting it, but we should be focusing on what works.
what works is taking the money out. What works is not taking the money out of these schools and taking money out of schools where like normal, like semi-middle class white kids are going to school. Take their money, take your income tax proceeds out of Ocean County and send them to play these places, like I hate to say it, Mars.
Well, we could talk about sending federal tax dollars from New Jersey, New York, California, Massachusetts, to the taker states who get a much bigger part of their education
Well,
budget.
we don't have any control on it. We do have control over our own tax system, and our own tax system is rigged against the middle class.
Well, the funny thing is, Republicans advocate cutting federal taxes, income taxes in particular, which actually assist the states with the higher income earners, and that a lot of that money finds its way to the school districts in Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, where they use a much higher percentage of federal support than we do in New Jersey.
It's very generous of you then to be a Morristown or a New Jersey Democrat voluntarily sending everybody else's money from the state of New Jersey to Oklahoma. I'm sure the people of Oklahoma thank you profusely.
No,
I mean, from my perspective, I want to come back to
it's my criticism as a Democrat of the Department of Education and my criticism of
where well, you should be on board with getting rid of it.
Actually, those states should have a property tax that funds their public schools, just like
Fine.
we
And
do.
why
That's
would they do
exactly
that?
what we had before Abbott v. Burke.
Why would they do that, Paul, as long as we're sending them all our money?
Well, I agree with you 100% on that. I think
Welcome
that
to the Republican Party. And I
maybe
want to come back to something you said about charter schools too, because I know you said you were opposed to them, but in Newark, I think a full 40% of the kids in Newark are enrolled in charter schools because their parents do not share your view as to the merits of
Yeah.
going to a local public school or a traditional public school. And it seems to me that first and foremost, as I said before, If you've got a situation where there is a public school that is failing, the traditional Democratic philosophy is throw heaps of money on top of it. Newark alone gets $1.2 billion worth of state funding for schools alone, and then they threw another $21 million on top of that in the Christmas tree bill. That's 10% of all state education aid, and that's coming out of the pockets of people in Morris, which is not reducing our property taxes, but is instead going to bloat the Newark budget. Are they getting the results they deserve? Paul mentioned a minute ago what Asbury Park spends. Are they getting the results for that kind of money? And you mentioned a minute ago yourself. What about these basically scams or what have you with the public schools? If they're not getting if a charter school doesn't get the results, they close it down.
Well, we have a charter school in the Morris School District that was started very improvidently about 25 years ago. It's completely unnecessary. It drains money from the Morris School District budget for
Who
no
goes
reason.
there?
Good question. It's people who wanted a public-private school within the Morris School District.
Well, why aren't they entitled to have their kid educated in the environment they want to, just like you are with your kids?
Well, what is the environment they want that's so different from the outstanding Morris School District? Ask
Maybe they
yourself
don't.
that.
Maybe they disagree with you. I mean, I was just looking for a minute ago at you mentioned the demographics of Morristown and Morris Township.
Yeah.
Morristown is about 50% quote white unquote non-Hispanic
Oh,
white.
right. Yeah.
Add Morris Township into that, and you find yourself in a situation where it's probably about 70% non-Hispanic white.
Right.
Yet Morristown High is 50% minority, allegedly, whatever you want to call a minority. So
Okay.
therefore, a substantial number of white people are abandoning the public schools and sending their kids to private schools. Why is
Right.
that so?
Well, they're not all going to the public school, and there's a lot of opportunities to go to outstanding private schools in this area. You went to one of them. Del Barton is here.
I did, and it cost $1,600 a year when I went there.
Well,
Like Paul's
you
tuition
know,
was,
so it's probably I went to Bailey Ellard, which is long gone now, but the uh, uh, the fact that we lost that many students is just a fact of life. It's a very affluent area, and those parents have choice. You're not going to keep them all in the public school, but the fact that we do still keep many of our top achieving white students in the Morris School District, a public school, when there are other options and their parents have other options, says a lot about the success of the district. But I didn't expect to be talking so much about the Morris School District tonight,
Yeah,
and
I think we've
I
kind of
think
covered that. Let's
I
go
think
back to Trump.
I
we got
think
we got
I yeah.
we got 10 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes on something else. I mean, because if
Are
we're
we
going to
doing an hour?
we're going to do it today because we've already gone an hour, 45 minutes. So what the hell? We might as well go the extra 10. And
Okay.
so my thought on it is that you asked what kind of stuff I'd like to cover. I'd like to look at Mikey Sherrill a little bit at this juncture because I'm curious to
He's the
see.
governor-elect.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sure that anybody watching our show will know that fact by now. And I'm curious, though, if what you think about her choices so far. She's already picked a new AG. Apparently, was not happy with the old one, or maybe just felt he wanted to go on to other things. I'm curious about your view as to how her her first tentative steps towards the state house have impressed you.
Well, I'm uh, guardedly optimistic. First of all, I'm not a fan of the model we have followed of letting people with zero political experience become governor of New Jersey. It hasn't worked out so great, and I'm happy to see somebody who's served in the legislature.
Who would those folks be, if I mean?
They shall here go unnamed, but I think this is a better model that Mikey Sherrill has served in Congress, I believe, since 2018. So she's had experienced a legislative give and take, and she has been through the rough and tumble that requires you to deal with the views of others and try to get something done anyway. I think she's got an interesting idea for a CFO model where she's got somebody coming in trying to manage the government. And I think the attorney general, I saw who she announced for attorney general. It looks like somebody who's qualified, who's a former U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney. And it looks like a pretty, so far, those three appointments are pretty good. I certainly think she's entitled to assemble her team, and they don't look like partisan political hacks. And if she brings competency to managing the governor's office, and it looks like she's even talking about, she assembled a team, a bipartisan team, which as a Democrat, it's a little bit disconcerting, but I think her pledge to work with the minority uh, in the assembly and in the state senate, it's a good thing too. Just get
The ever shrinking
I'm sorry, what?
ever shrinking minority, I might add.
Your audio's distorting, Mike.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
is it?
couldn't hear what you said.
Well, it's probably wasn't worthwhile saying anyway.
Were
I
you
said
shrieking or something?
the ever shrinking minority in the state house
You're talking about
Republic.
the Republican Party in New Jersey.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. No,
they've
no,
had.
not in New Jersey, but certainly in the
Well,
legislature.
I mean,
But
as you know well, there is a Democrat in the seat formerly occupied by Mr. Carroll, which is an event that I could never have dreamed of back when he was waffling candidates in his district by a 2-to-1 majority, and now
well,
not.
remember we've always been you're old enough to remember the old history. We had Gordon McGinnis was our senator for a while. We had two Democrats in the assembly back in the day for a while, and
70s, Watergate era. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and then a little bit later on, when people found themselves in difficult, our district was always willing to let.
Truly aberrational situations.
Yeah,
This,
true, and
this
I'm
has
hoping
been
this
a
one will be
ser
too. But
this
you
has
know,
been a series of dramatic changes in this county. I mean, we had Joe Biden carried Morris County, and Mikey Sherrill carried Morris County in a gubernatorial race and in a presidential race. Those are both very high turnout races, and those are very different from when it was literally. I remember when Jim McGreevey lost statewide by 25,000 votes to Christy Whitman in 1997, and then he lost Morris County alone by 56,000 votes. And now presidential candidates are carrying Morris County and gubernatorial candidates are carrying Morris County. It's a sea change.
well,
And
you know what Ed Koch said about that,
it's
right?
Donald Trump. It's Donald
Well,
Trump.
part of it's that, but you know what Ed Koch said about that? He said, "The people have spoken, and now the people must suffer." And
No, actually, I once had a chance to talk to Mayor Koch, may he rest in peace, about that quote, because he used to say it all the time on the radio. And what he said exactly was, "You threw me out, and now you must be punished."
actually, he was funny. He told I'll bore you with a story because my dad was very into New York politics. Apparently, right after Koch left office, I think he lost an election when he was running for governor or something like that. But he was on
He
the
lost
streets.
to Mario Cuomo.
He was walking the streets of New York City as a private citizen, and some guy walked up and looked in his face and says, "You were a rotten mayor." And the mayor and Koch turned to him, flipped him the bird, and the guy was like astonished. This is not what a politician is supposed to do.
I heard that. I heard that story too. That Ed Koch, the man, then complained probably to the New York Post that the mayor of New York had flipped him the bird and given him the finger. And
If he had done that before the election, he probably would have won.
the mayor's response was, "No, I gave him the Boy Scout salute, but he was looking at me sideways."
Ed was a very interesting duck, but I
Yeah.
mean, it seems to me. I'll go back to Mikey and the
He
congresswoman.
was a liberal with sanity. That's how he
The,
described himself.
the thing is with Mikey is that she accomplished nothing in Congress for all practical purposes. Basically, it was and I don't necessarily tell her that's because I served in a minority and I know that that's a problem. And I
Yeah,
also was
that's
down there. I also was down there in the majority, despite the fact that you have no seniority. So I don't hold that against her. But what I do hold against them, and again, I want to come back to what we talked about before. The transfer of money from this state to another state and the assault. If you're going to bellyache about tax cuts for the rich, your primary bill that you introduced in Washington should not be a huge tax break for the rich, even if they happen to live in your own state. It may be good politics, but it is kind of hypocritical.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens on the pledge to reduce electric rates through some sort of emergency order.
Will never, never, never happen. Remember, by the way, did you see who her attorney general designee worked for before she worked for these people?
I don't know it's a pretty
PSC&G.
it's a I, it's a pretty significant campaign promise. I think there's a
But
couple.
wait a minute, there's something that's so absurd about that promise. When you promise also that you're going to stop burning fossil fuels, You're just saying my other promise didn't mean anything whatsoever, because if I don't have fossil fuels, prices for energy are going to skyrocket. Will necessarily skyrocket, in the
That
words
was,
of Obama when he was a
The-
candidate.
I think the reason that the prices for electricity are skyrocketing is that the use of data centers for Bitcoin mining and artificial intelligence have so outstripped the need that there's a supply. It's changed the supply and demand from the
no, no,
previous.
no, 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 no. Come on, let's be clear about this.
No,
When you take 1,500 megawatts of
there's
power
more
offline,
demand. Yeah.
when you 1,500 megawatts of power offline, we take a perfectly good nuke offline. And by the way, that happened originally. The proposal was under Chris Christie, so I'm not
I
blaming
was
it
going to
on.
say that's a long time ago.
I'm not. Well, it was eventually went off under Murphy.
Well, then
But
let's just focus on the fact that the rates have spiked recently.
well,
Because
yeah, that's because
what do you think
Well,
the explanation is?
but when you take fossil fuels out of the picture, the rates aren't going to go down. It's supply
But
and
but
demand.
but
You
gentlemen,
increase the supply.
what is the reason you think we've had the very recent spike of electric rates over the summer?
because they took 1,500 megawatts of power offline. They had to go to an electric auction with the regional firm or the regional entity that provides it. And if everybody wants power and you don't have it and have to buy it on the open market, it costs money.
Right.
And you
And
And
buy it from other states and costs a fortune.
you could set up a regulatory structure that favors residential consumers of electricity.
Then you
not with
drive
not
all
with
the
the one you.
businesses out of the state.
I don't think Pennsylvania and the rest of the coalition are going to go along with that.
I don't know. Everybody's electric rates are causing major political problems in all these states. And if the data center operators and those who rely upon data centers need power, they might have to pay a little more for it and subsidize the residential rates. I don't see that's a crazy solution.
Well, the interesting thing about it is one of the things that the ecos are talking about is have
And oh, you have to bring power online
they wanted
and
to have
increase the supply. You
they
do.
wanted to have they wanted to have every one of these data centers put up solar power to run their centers, which of course would work while they were
Don't
sunny.
get me started on solar power
But
and
but
micro power. I can
but
go on that subject.
but you can't go on with this one because if just one data center would take 500 acres worth of solar panels to run, and that's only during the day when the sun is shining. That ain't gonna happen in New
Well,
Jersey.
but a data center takes a lot of power.
Again, it does, but that's what I'm saying. You need
That how
500
much it
acres.
just so people watching this, how much does a data center use based on that calculation?
Lots.
Okay, all right. Well,
Well, and you just can't take fossil fuels out of the mix. It's not possible. It's just a pipe dream. And when you've got the governor wannabe running around the state telling us she's going to make things more affordable and telling the environmentalists she's going to get rid of fossil fuels, people
Pick
should.
one.
but you're making an argument about the cost of clean energy that's 10 years old. The costs have dramatically fallen for the costs of clean energy. Solar panels, wind energy, the technology's
Well, then why
improved.
do they want such giant subsidies?
Well, go try it without subsidies. I mean,
Well, we
when the cost of a solar panel was $5 a watt 12 years ago, and it's $1 a watt now.
that's
It's
on your roof. Where are you going to put the kind of solar panels you need to
it's
to
for any solar
I
panel.
understand your point, but
Yeah,
if you want to build an industrial or commercial level kind of
it means
solar power,
amortizing the cost of a solar panel drops from 25 years to 5 years.
we've had this discussion. The fact of the
Yeah,
matter is that if all of the stuff that you're saying is true, why
yeah.
haven't the rates gone down?
Oh, you have to pick a policy and stick with it. And I'm for all of the above. I mean, I
Has
think
has Murphy not stuck with it for the last 8
Wait
years?
a minute now. If you're, yeah, I hate this. All of the above. Where were
you
you
hate
when
that.
they shut down Oyster Creek, and I was saying it was crazy. Did they listen to me? No. They shut down the BF England plant down that was across from Atlantic City. That was going to switch from
Beasley's Point?
Beasley Point from
Right.
coal to
Gas.
gas, and that would have been much cleaner. And the Sierra Club supported it first. I always love to bust Jeff 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 Jeff's balls on this because
Tittle.
Tittle,
um,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, so now we're at 4:01, gentlemen. I think that's about an hour, and we
That's
don't
a
want to
wrap.
make
All right.
our viewers' ears bleed.
Let us adjourn for the. You got anything?
I'm getting
Any
a
final
call.
last words to say, Mr. Molshine?
I'm getting a call right now from Murray Sabrin, and he can fix this all.
Oh, really?
You've said
Okay.
the last word on the subject for today.